So every once in a while when you record a video, you just gotta wing it. This isn't necessarily going to be a normal review either, and right up top I want to throw out spoilers, because honestly, if you've seen the movie, then you know the story already and you've already spoiled the book, so why should I tiptoe through the tulips here? And the question is the book better than the movie? And the answer to that is, it depends. I would say yes and no. Personally for me, yes, book was better, but not in the sense that like books are always better, because you get more context and detail and you get all blah 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 blah. Essentially, you're getting the exact same story. But what the trick here is you're getting the exact same story told in a completely different style. I turned these lights on back here for mood because it's like a scary video, and now it just feels pink, which I guess is fine. Actually, now that I look at the book, it's kind of a pink book. Anyway, I'm off track already. What was I saying? The book isn't necessarily a horror book, although it is very horrific. But I feel like the movie is so much different because it's a difference of medium. If you attempted to portray the horrific elements of the book in the movie, like just at face value the way they're presented here, I don't think it would have worked very well as a movie. So I feel like those were choices that they made in order to portray what they were attempting to portray. Now, the book is presented more like a straight-up detective story, although it's more like he's a reporter, so he's investigating a story for the newspaper, wherever the hell he works, I don't even know. But he's a reporter investigating a story, so it plays out as this detective-style investigation story, and it's like almost like he brings in his buddy cop, although he's kind of just the worst. Maybe? Big question mark on that. There are a few key things that happen to this guy as the story is unfolding that create an overwhelming sense of dread within the story, like watching the videotape. And then he starts to race against the clock to figure this out so he can save himself. And then, halfway through the story, he comes home to find out that he left the tape out and his wife and child have watched it. So now it just ratchets that tension to 11 because now it's a race against the clock to save them. It's basically not even about him anymore. And all sense of cliche horror movie elements are just not there at all. Whereas in the movie, they injected all of these, more stereotypical, dare I say cliche, horror movie elements into the movie to make it feel like a horror movie, where those are completely absent from the book, which I really liked. I actually appreciated the fact that those were not in the book because it made the book feel more authentic and genuine in a sense, without these extra things. And in hindsight, had I read the book first and then watched the movie, I probably would have felt like those additions actually cheapened the experience. At this point, I feel like they've cheapened the experience, to be quite honest. But I like the narrative style of this much better than the narrative style that they went with in the movie, which, to be fair, it's very similar. I'm going to jump in here because it feels like I'm going in pretty hard on this movie, and that's not necessarily fair. By injecting these more stereotypical horror tropes into the movie that weren't in the book, effectively conveyed some of the horror that was in the book in a way that probably would not have been possible without having put those tropes in. Furthermore, if your interests are more typically the standard horror movie, then you're probably going to get more enjoyment out of the movie than you would the book anyway. But there's just an overall feeling that you get reading the book versus the movie. And those ratchets of tension that I said, they just ratchet it up and ratchet it up. And then your main character survives, which releases the tension from the book, and you get to breathe this big sigh of relief just for his friend to duplicate it, what they assume is the solution to their problem, because guess what? He survived, just for him to die. So now that tension's back. But now the wife and child is on the wire. And we go back to what the hell, trying to figure this out. And then we get to him coming to a revelation that he thinks is the actual solution this time. So now we hint at an ultimate release of that tension, just for him to get in a car, start to drive to his wife and kids, and you're like mid-paragraph when the book just ends. You're like, wait a second, no, we're on our way. We're going to go solve the problem, but it's over. There is no next page. So it hinted at the ultimate release of tension and then didn't give it to you. I thought it was just beautiful. That's my kind of ending to a book, just to dial the tension up throughout the story and then cut. You're like, oh, you son of a bitch. But it was great. So if your idea of horror is more in line with the stereotypical horror movie, and less with the underlying tension of the story and the detective aspects, you might enjoy the movie more. It feels more like a mainstream horror thing, whereas this does not. This feels more like a subtle detective story with horrific elements underlying that it's going to drive your story forwards and increasing tension that's never released. So if you have problems with anxiety, I don't recommend you read this book. But to me, I thought it was wonderful. I actually, once I got to going, I couldn't really stop. It was one of those things, and it's not a big book, so it's only like it's not even 280 something pages. I think I read it in 2 sittings, like no joke. Absolute definition of a page turner. Anyway, what would I rate this? I didn't even think about a rating before I sat down. Boy. I'll give it an 8. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.